so happy you're here and I'm so excited. Today we are making dairy-free, gluten-free pumpkin pie. Now, gluten-free pumpkin pie, that's a thing, not so difficult. You go to the store, you can buy a pre-made pie crust. There's a lot of, mixes out there you can make. But the dairy-free part of it is a little challenging, but I have found that just replacing the butter with earth balance and some of the other changes I've made to this pie crust recipe really works well and creates an amazingly delicious and flaky and light pie crust. Now, if you've watched many of our videos, you know that we're pretty much more savory people than we are sweet. And when it comes to baking, that's no different. I pretty much do, breads and pizza and stuff, and pie is something I've never made. I started to buy some pie crust mixes and make it myself and roll it out. So I just a little bit of experience. But this year, I really wanted to make my own dough recipe, and so 100% scratch-made pumpkin pie, and that is what we're gonna do. So we're gonna jump right in here. The first thing you have to know about making pie, if you've never made it before, which I did and I had to learn a lot, is the biggest component is your cold shortening and butter. It needs to be cold. I just pulled it out of the refrigerator like minutes ago, so we're good. And so that needs to go into the food processor cold. So the first thing is I have the dry ingredients, all the flours and the xanthan gum and everything, and I'm gonna put it in the food processor here. And you're going to want your blade attachment. Now I am going to get my shortening in, and the shortening when it gets cold is pretty funky and hard to work with. So that's why I converted my recipe, not converted, I work in grams when I bake, and it's no different here. I will give you the tablespoons for this, but good luck getting the correct amounts in tablespoon. So I'm shooting for 96 grams of shortening. And I have a knife in here to break it up. Okay, I've got my shortening in. That was a lot of work there, but I got it done. Now I'm going to cut the butter. You don't want to put the butter or the earth balance. In this case, I'm just going to refer to it as butter. It's easier. You don't want to put it in whole at all. I like to use the earth balance buttery sticks because I can put them in the size that I need them to be. If you use the tub of earth balance, you can kind of do that with tablespoons, but it doesn't work as well. So if you can find the sticks, I really prefer them for baking. Okay, so I've got these cut. They're about in tablespoon sizes as indicated on the package. So 1/12, so I'm going to go into my other one here. So we've got the butter and the shortening, the dry, and then we're also going to add an egg, and it has a little bit of vinegar in here, and I beat the egg just a little bit. This goes in last. Okay, so let's get started. This is the important, almost kind of scary part, because this is where you make it or break it on your dough. Well, there's a couple places throughout this process that's like that. But the more you make it, the easier it's going to be, and you'll find that it's like, oh, I make pie. It's great. Okay, so I'm going to pulse this about 20 times, and the pulse is about a second each. What we're doing here is we are breaking up all the fat, the butter and the shortening, into little balls, and it's being coated in the flour, or at least that's the goal. So I'm going to get my hand in here, and so I feel around, and I've got some big pieces of shortening. The shortening seems to break up less easy than the butter does. See, I got a big piece here, so obviously I'm on 15. I'm going to go to 20, so I've got 5 more pulses. That should take care of that. Okay, I went 5 more. Let's see what we have. Oh yeah, much better. Now you may find that you have to do, 15 worked, or you can do, I don't know, 22. I'm not going to do any more because I'm going to put the egg in. That'll take care of it. So this is like the biggest piece I found so far, and that's not very big. So I'm going to take the egg vinegar mixture, and then we're going to pulse 5 more times. And it should be nicely distributed. Yep, and it's starting to get a little bit wet. Okay, we are perfect. I'm going to clean this up, and we're going to go on to the next stage, which is adding water and forming a dough ball. If you read many pie crust recipes, it says, add water until the dough comes together. Yeah, that was my question too. What does it mean the dough comes together? Does the dough come together well? Is it still crumbly? Is it wet? That was the big question to answer, especially with gluten-free flour. It's a little different. Well, it's a lot different, really. And so I had to find the perfect amount of the water to flour mixture, because a nice wet dough is easier to roll, but it sticks like crazy and you'll never get it off your parchment paper. So as you do this, your judgment and what you think is going to work is going to come into play. And don't worry, you may not have enough water, you may have too much water, you'll find out, but it's going to depend also on your where you are in the country, if it's dry, if there's a lot of humidity. The recipe is going to call for about 9 to 10 tablespoons. You may take less. I don't think you'll take more. Okay, so I'm going to put about 5 in now. Okay, and I've done this with a spatula, and I've done it with my hands, and I prefer to do it with my hands because I can really feel the wetness level in the dough and not get overly wet. Because like I said, you do not want an overly wet dough. It will not end well. Okay, so I'm just gently moving it around and kind of pushing it a little bit. And when I say push, it's so gentle to try to coax the dough to come together and get a sense if it's starting to. And it is starting to a bit. But I'm going to add more water. And by the way, this, if you see the ice cubes, the water must be ice cold. So I put some ice cubes in the water and let it sit, and it is nice and cold. Okay, we're getting very close here. I think I'm going to put one more. And like any other gluten-free dough, it's sticky. And it's what's funny is it's sticky, but it's not sticky in the way you want it to be sticky, because what you're trying to do is make a dough ball here. And I'm pressing, I'm using the warmth of my hands, and so it's coming together. It's a little, I don't think it's too dry. I may decide to put more water, but no, I think I'm good. So as you start this process, you start feeling it come together. It's about 420 grams per ball. This makes 2 crusts. So if you wanted to make a closed pie, you could. Obviously a pumpkin pie is not, but if you're making 2 pumpkin pies, this is perfect. You're going to have 2 crusts. Now, because I like to be perfect when I bake, most recipes say put it in one big ball and cut it in half, slice it in half or whatever. It's like that really doesn't work with this dough. And I want to be a little more precise. So once I get my first ball, and like I said, my target's I think about 425 grams, I'm going to weigh the ball. And I'm 385, so I'm going to put a little bit more dough in here. Some of the dough is breaking away because, it's, like I said, it is a perfect combination of wet to dry. You want to get it as wet so that you can make a ball, but not too wet. 420. Okay, so I am going to put this, I have some plastic wrap stretched out here. I'm going to put that there while I form my second ball. So what we're going to do now is, and I like to wrap the plastic wrap over it before I do this, is we're going to flatten slowly and easy to a disc. You'll notice that this is going to be difficult to flatten. It's very hard, and it's going to crumble a little bit. Don't worry about that. That's why we have the plastic wrap around it already. And now I'm going to wrap it up completely, and then I'm just going to kind of take it and squish it a little more when it's in the plastic wrap. You're going to want to do this because it is a little crumbly. And it'd be difficult to get it into a nice disc without the plastic wrap surrounding it. And so now I'm going to press it down a little bit more. Okay, so that guy is done. What we're going to do after this chills in the fridge for an hour is we're going to roll it from here. So you don't want to have a big ball and try to roll that. So that's really the point of doing this. Okay, let me go back to this guy. Okay, I think I like that. I am going to get these 2 in the fridge for an hour, and then we are going to roll some pie crust. I recommend a 9-inch pie pan. The gluten-free dough is hard enough to roll. You don't want to go any further than you have to. I'm using a ceramic. It's been in the family forever. I was having a conversation with Mom the other day. We don't know where it came from, but we've had it for a very long time. So this is a 9-inch pan. And I have a rolling pin that it's also family related. It came from Rich's side of the family. I'm not sure which relative made it, but we're very grateful to have it. I prefer it to the one with the rollers on it. It just seems more natural, and I like the tapered nature of it. Okay, so I've taken out the pie crust. Now it's going to be, when it's cold, it's going to be crumbly. which is good because you want everything about pie is about keeping things as cold as possible to keep them from melting. You want them to melt in the pie when it's cooking in the oven because that creates your pockets and your flakiness. So you can see it's a little bit crumbly. So I'm just going to take my hands. Now the warmth of your hands are going to help in this situation and throughout this process. And I'm kind of pile it together, get rid of some of the crumbs. You'll feel when you touch it, it's pliable and it'll stick together a little bit better. Okay. Now I'm going to get my top sheet. I'm using parchment paper. And then I'm going to start. You want to go in a circle. I roll like 2 or 3 times. And then I start in the middle and go out, and I'll rotate as I go, or I'll walk around it. It depends what mood I'm in. And you want to go, it's a slow and methodical process, and you want to go from the center to the side, or not all the way. You don't want to go like all the way this way, because then you're going to get your dough a little too thin on the edges. But if you do that, then I'm going to show you what you can do to fix that as well. And as you roll the dough, you'll notice, you'll see in the dough you've got your pockets of fat in here, which is good. I pulled this up periodically, 1, to make sure I'm not sticking, and 2, don't hesitate to come in here and push your dough back in as it gets crumbly on the edges. And that'll keep the dough from thinning out too much on the edges, and it'll also make a much more uniform circle, because that's what we're going here is a circle. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Whoops. Come back and roll. It is a light to medium pressure that I am using. And it is not easy to roll. I mean, it's not like you roll it and woo, it goes. It takes some work, as you can see. But keep at it, you will get a nice pie crust. This is actually looking pretty good. And then I'll grab my pie pan as a target, see where I am. Oh, I'm really close. I got a little bit further. Because you want it to go about an inch beyond your pie pan, so you have some extra dough for the sides of the crust there. So I'm going to go. I'm feeling it a little heavy in the center. Okay, I think that might be good. Oh yeah, look at that. I'm pretty happy with that. It looks like a pie crust. Got a little dent here. Okay, so I've seen quite a few different methods. You roll it up on the rolling pin, you roll it into your pie pan. That never worked for me. So I'm just doing the old put it on top and flip it over method, which seems to work for me. Okay, this is the tricky part. So I've got this spatula here in case I get any stickiness, which some of it's going to stick. Now don't worry if it breaks, because we're going to be able to put it back together again. It's like Humpty Dumpty. You fell off the wall, put back together. Our pie crust is not going to be any different. I've seen some videos and where when they put it on top of the pie, they push it down with the parchment still on it. Don't do that. That just makes a mess. Almost there. That one little sticky spot right here. Okay. And I have successfully put it, it's a little off, but that's okay. Because like I said, we're going to put things back together again. You have all of this over the edge, and so you have to decide what kind of edge you want. I like mine to be pretty simple for a pumpkin pie. Okay, so I've got it I've pushed it down into the corners, if there's a corner in a pie pan, but you know what I mean, into it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this up and kind of crimp it. And because this is sticky, I have a handy dandy bowl of hot water right here. Now you don't want to put a ton of water onto this pie crust. You just want to wet your fingers a little bit. There we go. Because if you put too much water on it, it's going to get funky. You don't want funky pie crust. And know that as you go through and you do this, the warmth in your hands you're going to use that to your advantage. Because if you put your hands on a piece of dough and you want it to stay there, just kind of press in and let your hands cover it for a few seconds, and you'll feel how it just gets warm. You know, the warmth of your hands is kind of, I won't say melting the dough, but it's forming the dough. I'm going back around and I'm kind of pushing this together with my fingers to give a nice little edge or kind of a tip on it. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I want to get this crust off the side, so I'm pulling it up, and then I'm going to go through and make sure it's all, because it's some down below there. That's looking pretty good. Now at this point, you can decide to pull this up a little bit more, push it down. You can crimp it. You can go through and put your finger marks, thumb marks like that, which I kind of prefer that because I don't like spending a lot of time with the dough and making pretty shapes and flutes and whatever you do. It's just not my thing. But if it's your thing, go ahead and do it. But know that the longer you have your dough out here, the softer your fats are going to get. So you're going to want to put it in the refrigerator. We're going to do that anyways. After I'm done here, I'm going to put it back in the fridge, let it chill down again while we make the filling. I don't use a pre-mixed like Libby's. When I was a kid, that's all we ever used. But I am starting with a 15 ounce can of organic pumpkin. Nothing but the pumpkin in here, which is good. And the organic seems to have a lot more flavor. Then we have white sugar, brown sugar. Oh, that is packed. And then I have 2 eggs and then an egg yolk. That's all together, and I beat it slightly, not like majorly beat, but I wanted to get it all mixed together. Some vanilla. And then all the yummy spices, ginger, clove, allspice, cinnamon. That's what makes this so delicious. Salt too, salt is important. And now the last ingredient is the milk. Now most pumpkin pie recipes call for sweetened condensed milk. Some do evaporated milk, some use heavy cream. So it's fine to use whatever you want. If you're dairy-free, you can use, I'm using Ripple half and half dairy-free alternative. I really like the texture and the flavor. You can go with that. You can do straight up almond milk, cashew milk, rice milk, oat milk, whatever you want. Now know that if you're using a milk that doesn't have a thicker consistency, you may need to use less of it. So just kind of experiment. And I prefer a thicker pie, so I don't use as much milk. So know that in the recipe, which there will be a link to below in the description, I'm using a certain amount of milk. You may want to use less or more. But I'm going to mix this together first before I get the milk in so I can see. I'm pretty set with the amount that I have here, but you could probably go up from what I have listed, maybe a 1/4 cup or so. Or more. But if you're using, like I said, a thinner like almond or cashew or something, you might want to go down. But, you know, experiment, see what you like. Okay, so now I'm going to get the milk in. Put a little bit at a time. Put the rest in. So you can see how thick. That's what I love about the Ripple. It has a nice texture to it. I know that Silk makes a soy creamer. A couple other companies do as well. Quite a few, more than I did years ago when I started making this dairy-free. There weren't hardly any alternatives. The pie crust has chilled down a little bit, which is going to make for a much better pie crust. So I am just going to pour this in. Oh, this is just perfect. This looks absolutely wonderful. I cannot wait to eat it. Okay, I'm going to stop messing with my crust. Stop, Victoria. Okay, we're good to go. We're going into a 425-degree oven for 15 minutes, and then we're going to reduce it down to 350 for 40-45 minutes. You want to be able to stick a toothpick in the middle and it come out clean, very much like a cake, and that'll tell you that it's done. Every oven is different, altitude, things like that, so you'll want to keep an eye on it. And you may be wondering, well, what is she going to do with the other crust that she made a little puck of? And it's like, I don't know. I may make another pumpkin pie. I may do something different. I think pecan, Rich loves pecan pie, so maybe I'll make that.
Freeze it.
If I don't make it soon, I can freeze it and use it whenever I want. So if you're only making one pumpkin pie and you have the 2 crusts, you can do that as well. Okay, the pie has been in the oven at 350 for 40 minutes. I don't think it's going to be done, but I'm going to check it because I like to keep an eye on these things. It's looking pretty good though. Now you can just tell that is not done. Yeah, you can see that is definitely not done, but look how nice and puffy it got. I'm really happy about that. Ooh, okay, so I'm gonna put it on probably for another 15 minutes and check it then. Okay, I'm so excited to get this out of the oven. I just tested it not too long ago and it is done. And so now it's time to come out of the oven, and now I want to do this so I don't disturb it. Oh, look at that. Oh my God. Pure perfection. Oh my goodness. The terrible part is I can't eat it for a while because I have to let it cool. I had to wait a long time for the pie because it needed to cool down so that we could get a good slice out so we could take a picture. So that is why this beautiful pie is all sliced. We had to take a couple out and take pictures like I just said. This is why this pie is missing a couple slices. I am so thrilled with how it turned out. It's absolutely beautiful. It cooked up perfectly. It took about total of probably about almost an hour at the 350, which is fine. Again, every oven is different. So I'm about to dig into, I have not eaten anything yet. This has been killing me. I want to talk about what's on top of my pie. I thought earlier today, I'm like, Rich, it would be so great if I could have some, Cool Whip, dairy-free Cool Whip. And I know that there's some new brands out there. So he went to our local store, Kroger division, and he came home with True Whip. And we tried it, and we're like, it's not the worst thing we put in our mouth. I mean, it wasn't too bad. And then we're like, hey, what if we add a little something to it, make it taste better? So we added some honey and vanilla to this, and it tastes just like Cool Whip, which is another childhood memory thing. I used to eat entire things of Cool Whip all by themselves. Anyway, so this is what I'm going to experience. Homemade pumpkin pie with dairy-free Cool Whip. I'm just going to slide this over here so I get the full bite. Oh my God, I don't know if I can handle this. Oh my goodness. This tastes like what I used to love before I went gluten and dairy free. This is a pumpkin pie with Cool Whip. Oh my God, I gotta have another bite. I'm so really happy with the way the crust turned out. It is flaky, and I can't believe I'm saying it's flaky with a gluten and dairy free crust. I'm really, really proud of this crust. The pumpkin pie filling itself is very, very flavorful with all the spices that are in there. It has a terrific texture. It's not too thick. It's not too thin. It's just absolutely wonderful. And I love the True Whip with our little additions. So we might have done a couple other videos today. They might involve cranberries. And so we have a cranberry liqueur video and a cranberry sauce all in the Thanksgiving spirit because we are counting down to Thanksgiving. And so Rich made with our cranberry liqueur a cranberry Manhattan. So I am going to take a sip of this because this pie has made me very, very happy and I'm celebrating. Oh, that's wonderful too. And it goes really good with the pie. I hope that you make this pie and you enjoy it as much as I do. The link to the full recipe will be in the description below. Or go to gfexplorers.com and find the recipe and find all our other Thanksgiving recipes there as well. And until next time, happy eating.